got on this thing, all right? So we got the Deere 180D mulching head. And I know a lot of y'all are gonna have fun with this, but you know, I'm from East Texas and we're gonna call it the CMOF, all right? So we got the CMOF 180D right here, which is one of the bigger mulching heads that they offer. This is a very high performance mulcher. One of the things you'll notice about it, you see these rings on here? Some people will call that a bite limiter or depth control rotor on here, okay? And you also have these knives, which these do really well here in Florida, wherever you have that fibrous vegetation, but make no mistake about it, this is a high performance mulcher and the price certainly reflects that. So let's talk about what else we've done here. The auxiliary hydraulic manifold upgraded here to 3/4 inch couplers for your auxiliaries. Now the case drain is still the same size. Now, another thing to keep in mind is you see how the hoses here are routed, they're kind of just laying. You don't want to operate your mulcher like that. This one, whenever it goes back to the customer, he has like a garage door spring he's putting here to kind of hold it up. That works really well. Or you'll see guys put like, you know, like on the back of a semi truck, or they have that like thing that holds up the air brake hoses. Same thing. So just run that there and it keeps your hoses up and out of the way. Because you want to be able to tilt your head back and forth and maneuver it without your hoses getting caught and having to worry about that. We also have the manifold guard right here. They'll kind of keep debris and sticks from hitting there as you're in the woods and you're mulching with this thing. You also have the severe duty door. This one also has a light tint to it. We have that available. We've got a Fecon auxiliary hydraulic cooler mounted to the roof. A lot of guys ask, do I need this? Well, it depends on how often you run this mulching head and what kind of conditions we're in. If you're really running this thing all day and you're getting after it, it's probably not a bad idea to have one of these things. Do you absolutely need it? It's up to you and your application and how hard you usually run. Forestry rear bumper on this thing. It's a good option if you're in the woods and you don't know what's behind you whenever you're backing up. You've got a 2-inch receiver on here where you could potentially mount a winch or anything else. This 333 this is the HD rear grille offered by John Deere. The other one you might see out there is it has like a leaping deer logo in the middle, and that one's not the severe duty one. The severe duty one is like this. It has the steel louvers on it. You've also got the engine air pre-cleaner up here, this mushroom looking thing. Now what it does is it actually filters some of the air before it goes down into the air cleaner, and that is an option that's available. We've also got the chrome exhaust stack. Some guys really like that. We've got the high debris seal kit. One thing that you can instantly look at the outside of a 333 and tell if it has the seal kit is if you see this. So this part right here going across, what that does is that's one of the seals that keeps sawdust and debris from falling down in between the crack of the engine hood. It's I can't recommend this enough. It's a very important kit to have if you're running a brush cutter, a mulching head, or any kind of high debris application like that. All right, so let's go ahead and look inside the cab of this thing, all right? So some guys may not know this, but behind your seat is a Velcro pouch. Inside this pouch, you will find your owner's manual and a key to your door. Now, the door keys are universal, so it's not necessarily the most secure thing in the world, but it'll keep curious people from popping open your cab and seeing what you got. So, locked. And then inside the cab, we have, well, what's this? Something about Elvis, Bigfoot, alien, it's classified documents. You know, you find these anywhere these days. Let's go ahead and check out the buttons and the switches in this thing. So this is called the SSM, the sealed switch module. All right, so most John Deere construction equipment, you'll find an iteration of this thing in it. Most of your important controls are all going to be right here. So let's go ahead and get into it. So you press that green button there, and that's basically like turning the ignition in your truck to run, right? So it doesn't start the engine, but it just turns and activates all your controls, right? So starting here at button number 1, you see how there's numbers on each one of them, right? So button number 1, what this does, see how there's 3 lights, 1 light, 2 light, right? So what this does is the more lights that are on, the more sensitive your left joystick is, right? So this joystick controls movement of the skid steer, right? You press this forward, you're going forward, back, you're going back, turn, and so on, right? You can control how sensitive this is and how fast it responds. Now, button number 4, this does the same thing, but it does it for the loader joystick, right? So you can have each joystick set to a different sensitivity depending on how you like it to feel when you operate the machine. Button number 2, what this does, you see how there's an up arrow here and a down arrow? What this does is this changes your foot throttle down there from an accelerator to a decelerator, right? So in other words, you could have it to decelerate mode. You could have your throttle all the way up and just like do that to throttle down whenever you get close to a truck or something else. Or if you just want to run it like it's a dozer, you know, you could do that. This 3 button you'll probably never use. It changes the control pattern from the ISO pattern, the one that everybody uses, to one that nobody uses. So if you ever get in your skid steer and the controls feel really weird, somebody probably pressed that button. Number 5 is ride control. We'll get into that in just a second. It's like a suspension system for the loader. This is your self-leveling right here. This will keep your bucket or forks level as you raise the loader boom up, so you don't have to kind of meter it. You know, it's nice if you're loading trucks or moving pallets, that sort of thing. Of course, here's your engine RPM throttle here. We're going to explain what this number 5 button does right here, the ride control. Your machine may have it, and we're going to talk about how to use it today. First thing you want to do, go ahead and hit that P button, take your parking brake off. Now our controls are live, right? So to use ride control, press this 5 button once. You notice how there's one light that's on? That indicates the system is in standby. It's not currently on, but it's in standby. To activate it, click this right trigger. Boom. See how now there's 2 lights on? I don't know if y'all could hear that, but the whole loader kind of went boom, like that. What it does is it gives the loader some sponginess to it. See? So what happens is if you have like a full bucket of dirt or something and you're going across the job site, it gives the loader a little bit of suspension so you don't spill as much material and the machine actually rides a little bit better. Now to get out of this system, go ahead and hit this 5 button again. Boom, now you're out of it. Now, keep in mind, you can't use self-leveling, which is this one, and ride control at the same time. Additionally, you can't use bucket float, which you activate, see right there, that same right trigger? Ease your stick forward, click the right trigger, boom, bucket float. If you pull back on the right stick, you're out of bucket float. You cannot use all 3 of those at the same time, nor would you really want to. But just keep in mind, you have to have these off in order to use bucket float. And to use ride control, you have a quick reference guide right here telling you all about it. Going over to your joysticks, right? So top left is going to be your horn. Bottom left, that's how you keep your mower or your mulching head or your broom. Anything you want to keep spinning, this is how you do it, all right? The way you actually do it, I'll demonstrate this in a minute, but you're going to roll this switch forward and you're going to click that button, and then you can let go of this and it's going to keep running. Now I'll demonstrate that in just a second. But anyway, that's how you keep your attachments going. This right here, that's A and B. So let's pretend you had like, I don't know, a broom or a dozer blade or something. So A might go that way, B might go that way, right? This tilts your attachments and things that have electrical connections, brooms, dozer blades, right? That's what this does. This over here, C and D. You know, A might go that way, B might go that way, C might go that way, D might go that way. So if you got like a dozer blade, asphalt mill, something that has a lot of different functions, that's what it's for, right? So recap, we got horn, locks in your auxiliary attachments, A, B, C, D, and guess what? Guess what? E, F. So the only attachment I can really think of that would use something like this would be an asphalt mill, like a cold planer. They use this because they've got so many functions. You've got like your side to side, up, down, whatever, front and back, side to side. This thing here, this would be like, this wheel actually runs your auxiliary hydraulics, right? So if you have like a grapple, that's like close it, open it. If you have a mower, like a brush cutter, some of them are bi-directional, meaning you can spin it either way. So this way you might spin it clockwise, this way you might counterclockwise. On a mulching head, you can only run it forward on most of them. So that's your controls here. Now let's talk about this guy right here. You see this little rabbit turtle clicky switch? What this does, once you start clicking it, see I got a percent that comes up there, 100, 90, 80, 70. So what this does is this limits the top speed of the machine to whatever percent is up there, right? And you'll also see that snail icon come up. The way this is useful is what you can do is you can run your throttle all the way up, and you can have this joystick all the way forward, and guess what? You're only going that percent of your top speed. So you can dial that sucker down all the way to like, you know, 30%, whatever. It's nice if you're running like an attachment like this, because guess what? You can just have your joystick all the way forward and you're just creeping nice and slow forward. You don't have to like kind of meter your joystick. It's just a lot smoother experience. Now to get out of this mode, you're going to click this left trigger behind the joystick. Boom, now you're out of it. See, it's back to the normal screen it is. So this is a good time also to talk about this area here, right? So here you've got your diesel exhaust fluid gauge, you got your engine RPMs, you've got your coolant temperature, you got your hydraulic temperature, you've got your job clock, it's like a trip meter in your truck, you've got your battery status, and you've got overall hours. That's this icon here, right? So what you can also do here is you can read your trouble codes. You can hit your menu and scroll down to where it says codes, hit select, and you've got active and you've got stored. Now this one doesn't have any in it now, but if it did, you could hit select. If there was a code there, it'll say like a couple letters followed by some numbers, and it will, if you hit select on it, it actually gives you a description of what that code is. So for example, if it's like, you know, you'll see a code here, hit select on it, and it'll tell you, it'll be like, hey, water and fuel or something like that, right? And you have a lot better idea of what you need to do to resolve it. Going back to this menu again, you can also set, you see where it says fan rev interval? What you can do here is you can set how often the reversing fan will reverse in automatic mode. We'll talk about that in just a second. But look, you can go in here and you can pick an interval, right? You can do 40 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever. Now what this will do is when the fan is set to auto, see how this is off, auto? Whenever it's set to auto right there in the middle, that fan will automatically reverse. So let's say you're running your machine, your mulching, your whatever. Every 40 minutes, the fan will spin the other way and it will blow some of the dust and debris out of your radiators and your coolers, right? So that's actually pretty nice because it helps keep your machine clean. It's not a substitute for cleaning it out using an air compressor and actually getting all the big pieces out of there and keeping your coolers clean, guys. You have to do that on these machines. But this buys you a little bit more time and allows you to run longer intervals before you have to blow your machine out. So let's talk about the rest of these switches up here. So this one here, this does your quick attach. It takes your bucket or attachment on and off. So the unlock takes it off, lock puts it back on. I'll demonstrate that in just a second for you. Here's your light switch. 1 click turns on your front lights. 2 click, that turns on your side lights also, right? And if you press it all the way off, turns your lights off. This one we already talked about. This is like for advanced attachments. This is like your E and F function on your auxiliaries. This is your reversing fan button. This is your high flow button. Whenever you press it, it has this icon come on. So this will take you from like, 24 gallons a minute, 25, all the way up to like 45 gallons a minute on this machine. So when this icon is on, you've got high flow on. Now, you don't want to run high flow on an attachment that's not high flow. So if you got like a grapple and you put it on high flow and you go to open your grapple, you could potentially damage your grapple or any other attachment that's not high flow. It just puts way too much force through that attachment. Now to turn it off, we click it again. Boom, icon goes away. Here's your HVAC controls, just like in your truck. You got your AC compressor on and off. One other thing too, if you run your machine really hard and then you turn it off, just for after running it for a few minutes, you might see a message come up over here that says turbo cool down, engine shut down in, and it will give you a timer. That's normal. All it's meaning is that you just ran the machine really hard and it needs a little bit of time to cool off, okay? So the engine will just keep running. It'll count down maybe like a minute and then it will turn off as normal. That's nothing to be worried about. That's normal. It's just a feature to prolong the life of your turbocharger. These orange handles here, right here, all right, you're not touching these unless you're having a really bad day. Because what these do is these allow you to break the door off the hinges and the door will just fall off, right? So if the machine's flipped over or something else, or you're in a bad spot and you need to get out, turn these things, your door's gonna fall off the hinges and you can escape. Down here, see where that says operating instructions? You have a little box thingy. You can twist this, pop that open. See that guy right there? What that does, if you're in the machine, machine runs out of fuel or something else, engine stalls, and the loader's up in the air, you can pull that valve, the loader will fall down, and you can get out of the cab. This will inflate and deflate your cushion for your seat. This button right here, that turns on and off your heated seat. You've also got fuse panels here and here. This guy here is what you'd use to lock the boom out. This back here is actually where you'll find one of the filters for the AC system, and we'll get into that in just a second. This is most of what's inside the cab. Now let's kind of show you some other things on this machine. All right, so I'm gonna show you all how to run this mulching head we got here, right? So let's go ahead and start up our machine. Now, we're gonna go ahead and take the parking brake off. So when we press this button, this releases the parking brake and enables our hydraulics. So all of our controls are live right now. Let's go ahead and throttle up just a little bit, about halfway, right? We're gonna raise our mulcher up just a little bit. we're going to go ahead and turn our high flow hydraulics on. So we're going to press this button. Boom, you'll see this icon comes on. This tells us that we're in high flow right now. So we're going to go ahead and start the mulcher spinning. So we're going to roll that forward. You can hear it taking off. Then we're going to press this bottom left button right here. And when we press that, we can release this button and it will keep spinning. So watch this. Boom, now I just let go of that. Now our mulcher's spinning. So let's go ahead and get it up to full RPMs. Now we're rocking and rolling. So at this time, we can go ahead and start doing our thing, go in here, do what we got to do. Now, when you're ready to shut the mulcher down, this is what you do. Go ahead and throttle down, because right now it's spinning really fast. So go ahead and throttle down a little bit. Take her down to about a little bit above idle. And you'll feel it, it'll kind of want to catch up with itself and it'll start slowing down a little bit. Then you can bump this, and now you've cut off the hydraulic flow to it. So just kind of wait for a little bit, because it's going to be spinning for a hot second because it was going pretty darn fast. Take your time, wait for it to stop spinning, and then you can go ahead and set the attachment down and exit the cab safely. Now another quick note here on the diesel exhaust fluid. Any machine above 25 horsepower has to have some kind of regen process, like a regeneration, where it basically cleans the exhaust filter. This machine's no different. What's going to happen is, depending on how you run the machine, these things like to be run at higher RPMs, right? You'll find that the controls feel better, it responds better. Life is good if you got our higher RPMs. Because when the RPMs are higher, you've got cleaner exhaust. It's not dirtier exhaust, it's a higher exhaust temperature, right? So you're gonna have cleaner exhaust, and you're gonna need to regen less often. We're gonna talk about what happens whenever your skid steer wants to regen. So what's gonna happen is, let's say you're just operating one day, you're doing your thing, you're rocking and rolling, and you hear beep beep, and then you see like a little white icon that shows up right there. See that right there, that guy? So when that guy lights up and stays on, see how all the lights just turn on briefly whenever you start your machine? That means your machine wants to regen. So what's gonna happen is, the best way to get out of it, all it's doing is it wants to clean the exhaust filter. So go ahead and throttle up all the way and just keep working. That's the best thing you can do. It should take anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes. It depends on how dirty the exhaust filter is. These machines like to be running higher RPMs anyway, so it's a good idea to just have it at least about halfway, depending on what you're doing. Throttle all the way up, let it do its thing, and you'll get through it, all right? A lot of guys will see that message come up, and they'll be like, well, my goodness, and they try to throttle the machine down. They think something's wrong with it. They put it down to idle, but the machine won't idle whenever it's doing that, because it wants to be at higher RPMs. So it'll let you rev down to maybe about here, but you need to just throttle all the way up and let it do its thing, right? Any machine over 25 horsepower has to do this. It either does it through a regen process like how we do it, or it does what's called like a dock only system, which that way it's basically always regenning and it's just super hot all the time. That's how a dock system works. These have a DPF, which uses the regen process, which, again, just to summarize the whole thing, if you see that white light come on, throttle all the way up, keep working until that light goes away. The harder you work the machine, the faster it's going to go away, and you can get back to what you were doing. All right, so let's talk about how to disconnect these auxiliary hydraulic hoses on this 333, right? So the first thing we're going to want to do, you see how you got this collar right here? You see how you got that little BB looking thing right there? Watch this. You rotate that right there. That's the first step, because it will not disconnect if this isn't lined up. Now, when you're running this attachment, this is really important. You don't want it to be lined up. You know why? Because think about it, whenever you're running this attachment, you tilt back, you don't want to put pressure on here and potentially disconnect your hoses, right? So that's the first thing you want to do, is make sure that's lined up to the unlocked position. Now remember, when you're running the attachment, have it locked. So that way, whenever you tilt back, you're not going to pop your hoses off. I'm going to show you how to actually take these hoses off. This John Deere 333, like all John Deere skid steers, is equipped with connect under pressure auxiliary hydraulic couplers. So let me show you how to take the pressure off the machine side. I'm going to unlock the coupler. Now what you can do, watch this, you just kind of press it in just a little bit. See how it gave just a little bit like that? Hear that? When you do that, you're taking the pressure off the machine side, and it's going to make it a lot easier to do that. I typically do, this is called your case drain in the middle. I typically do that one last because it gives the pressure somewhere to go when you're fooling with this stuff. Okay? I'll do my K-string. Boom. And you're disconnected. And the next step would just be to disconnect it from inside the cab, and you're all done. All right, so this machine is equipped with the high debris seal kit. Now let's talk about that kit a little bit more. You see how you got this seal going around your hydraulic hoses right here? This is just one part of the seal kit, because what this does is it prevents leaves and stuff like that and sawdust from falling down into the belly of the machine. Here you have your hydraulic sight glass. It should be right there about in the middle. Notice this one's showing a little bit low, and that's because we have the loader locked out up in the air, right? So obviously your hydraulic fluid is not in the tank, it's in the cylinder. Let's go ahead and raise our hood, and of course, as y'all know on these John Deeres, you can remove your side shields just like that, and you can get to your engine compartment a lot better. Now, another function of this seal kit, here's your battery cover here. You see how there's this lip right here? This is part of the seal kit, actually. This whole cover is different from the factory one because this lip goes up higher in order to seal that a little bit better. It's really important whenever you're running these mulchers and things like that, you're gonna wanna blow out your coolers every now and then. So you can take that pin, swing it out, boom. Get you like an air compressor or something, and just blow all this out. Keep all this clean. You really don't want to introduce water into there because you can create like a really gummy mess. So it's usually better to use an air compressor. Yeah, a leaf blower will kind of work, but an air compressor typically works better. Over here you have your def tank. That's where you put your diesel exhaust fluid. The capacity on this thing is maybe like 1.5 gallons. It's not very much. It's designed to go through like a couple tanks of fuel. Depends on how you run it to how much depth it uses. Now, another part of the seal kit, you see this guy here? You'll find one like it on the other side as well. What this does is this helps seal where this panel meets the body of the machine. So that's yet another part of the seal kit, is that thing. And I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but you'll also see this guy, which is part of the seal kit. And this seals the crack between the hood to help keep more debris from falling in there. And up here, this is what we're talking about. Right here is your periodic maintenance chart. This is just a quick reference guide to tell you what you need to check and how often you need to check it. And we're gonna talk about that next. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what you gotta do as far as preventative maintenance goes on this 333. Now this applies to most other John Deere skid steers as well, right? Everybody always asks, is there like an initial service, a break-in service? Yes and no. So the only initial service you really have to do is on this guy, right? This is your final drive motor. There's one on each side, and if you look here, you see how this is a fill, drain, and a check. So whenever you're fooling with this, you want it to be positioned as I have it right here, right? So at 50 hours, you're gonna wanna drain this and refill it. John Deere calls it GL5. It's like a regular gear oil, like 80W90, that sort of thing. You're gonna wanna pull this bottom one out, oil comes out, cap it, take your top one off, put your new oil in there. Pretty simple. Again, at 50 hours, you're gonna wanna do that. It's very important you do it because it lets like those planetary gears in here, they break in and they leave a little bit of metal shavings in there. When you drain it, you get those out. Now, as long as we're here, let's talk about track tension. So the official way you're gonna wanna check the track tension is you're gonna wanna have a bucket on the machine, pick the front end of the machine up, stick you a block of wood on the back and really get it up off the ground. And you're gonna wanna measure from this roller right here and measure your track sag. But as a quick reference guide, we can get into that for another video. There's a quick reference guide. This one could probably use a little bit of grease, and that's how you adjust them, right? What you do, these are 1/2" bolts right here, right? Back these out, and behind this, you'll find like a little grease zerk. Whenever you put grease in there, what happens is this front idler goes forward and tightens your tracks a little bit. Now, if you want to loosen your tracks, there's like a little thing back there you can turn, and grease will come out, and the track will loosen, all right? It's a good idea to check that about every week whenever you're operating. If your tracks get too loose, they're gonna wear out quicker, and your sprockets are gonna wear out quicker. Also, it's a good idea to keep this area clean, because what's gonna happen is, if you let this fill up with dirt and mud and stuff like that, it's like sandpaper that just like wears your sprocket out a lot faster. So you're gonna wanna keep this clean, keep your tracks tension. What else you gotta do? Well, here's a little chart right here that tells you exactly what you gotta do as a PM guide. It tells you what you gotta do daily, do things like check your engine coolant, check your oil, check your grease fittings, that sort of thing. Now at 500 hours is when you change your oil and your fuel filters the first time. You see right here, this always confuses guys. You see this one right here where it says 250 engine oil, sample. A lot of guys see that, they're like, oh man, I gotta change the engine oil. Not so. What that's telling you is at 250 hours, if you want to get a oil sampling kit from your John Deere dealer, you can take a sample of the engine oil where they will then send it off to a lab where it will then be analyzed, and they will send you pages of spreadsheets and data and facts and figures and tables, and you can have that at your kitchen table, and you can have your light looking over, and you can be pouring over those facts and figures and numbers just to make sure your oil's okay. So if you're into that, that's what your engine oil sample is. Otherwise, 500 hours is when you do your engine oil, fuel filters, and all that good stuff. At 1,000 hours, you're gonna do your hydraulic service, right? That's whenever you drain your hydraulic oil. 1,500 hours, a lot of people don't know this, but that's whenever you actually need to adjust the valves in your engine. It's because it's a final tier 4 engine, the tolerance has to be just such to keep everything running smoothly and within emission standards. So again, some guys don't know that, but at 1,500 hours, you have to have your valves adjusted. Another thing is your air filters. If you look at them on the chart, it'll say as needed. So it depends on how dusty of an environment you're in, but about every week, 2 weeks or so, pop this off, check your engine air filters here. There's an inner and an outer. They're located in here. Speaking of air filters, you also want to check your AC filters. So there's 2 filters for your AC system, right? If you're in your machine and your air isn't blowing as hard as it used to, it's probably because your filters are dirty, right? So you'll find 2 of them. One of them you find by tilting the cab, and it's located right there where I'm pointing. It's like tucked in right back there. That's one of them that's like right there. The other one is located, you see back there, you got the 2 black wing nuts right there. There's a filter right there. That's your other one. So you're gonna want to check that one as well if your AC isn't blowing as hard as you think it should. So a quick word on greasing. So let's talk about these quick attach pins up here. Specifically the lower quick attach pins. Now you see that little chrome cap right there? Now you don't want to over grease those pins, okay? You want to put just a few pumps of grease in there. Don't just, like if you got your battery powered grease gun, sit there and just send it, as they say on the internet. Just hold that thing down, in. Because if you put too much grease in there, what's gonna happen is that chrome cap right there is gonna pop off. Because once you have too much grease built up behind there, it's gonna pop off. Every now and then I'll get a guy that calls me and say, hey man, you know, I need you to bring me another one of them grease caps right there. It's because you over grease those bottom pins a lot of times. So just put just enough grease in there, a couple pumps, and it's a good idea to kind of just roll your quick attach back and forth and really get that grease circulating in there on all sides of the pin. Other than that, the rest of the grease pins, there's nothing too special to them. It's about like you'd figure for greasing anything else. Hey guys, so thanks for watching. Before we let you go, just keep in mind that on these CMOFs and Fecons, other mulching heads, we do stock knives, liners, shoes, and various wear parts for these mulchers. Additionally, if you've got a Fecon or something else and you want us to tune it to your machine, we can do that. So hit us up and we can make that happen. Again, thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. We'll catch you on the next one.